my name is Lizzie, and this is Lizzie's Literary Life, and today we are doing my July Tipsy Wrap Up. We are back with a classic, cheap white wine in my wine glass with a straw, that I adore very much. And, yeah, we're here in my new filming spot that you've seen already, but I still just really like it, and I think it's really cool. Also, these, squares are new, so that's exciting. I did them today. In July, I read some books. This is the thing that I do every month, where I drink and talk about the books that I read in the previous month, which was July. First, let me prepare. We're going to do some stats. And stats, as you know, are serious business. So we put the drink down. I can't move over for the stats. I'm just going to have to move you over. Here we have my lovely little spreadsheet screenshot. In July, I read 11 books, which is, kind of how this year has been going. So 11 books it is. It was a total of 3,459 pages for an average of 314.45 pages in each book, which is pretty short. I guess I read some short books this month. My average audiobook length was 12.6 hours, which is, average. My average rating was a 3.27, so better than last month, I think. Yeah. Better than last month, but still not great. So either I'm reading worse books or I'm getting meaner. I don't know. It took me an average of 9.63 days to read each book. And I read an average of 115.3 pages per day. The total time I spent reading in the whole month was 50.4 hours. About 18 of those were in the last couple days of the month because I did a 24 and 48 reading challenge from July 30th to August 1st, which there's kind of a vlog of that you're going to see in a little bit, but I did succeed in the 24 and 48, so that's very exciting. And a lot of the books at the end of this list were read during that time. I spent an average of 4.582 hours on each book, which feels, I guess there were a lot of audiobooks. I was going to say that feels compared to the average page count, that feels long, but I guess I listened to a lot of audiobooks and those are slower than reading with my eyeballs, so it makes sense. Average pages per hour, 84.04. Again, that's pretty slow, but it's because of the audiobooks. I did not have a Jigsaw TBR this month, so there's no TBR stats. I just read books. Here is my genre breakdown. You can see it is mostly contemporary, where I also count literary fiction. I'm thinking about separating out literary fiction as a genre next year in my spreadsheet, but it's kind of nebulous, that line. Sometimes it's hard to say, so let me know what you think. I also read a couple mystery thrillers, a couple fantasies, and a historical fiction this month. I read mostly adult books and a couple young adult books, more young adult than I have the past couple months. I read a lot of audiobooks this month, as you can see in the handy dandy pie chart. I read 6 audiobooks, 3 physical and 2 ebooks, which is kind of unusual for me, but also I was road tripping, so there was audiobooks there, and then I forgot how to read, so I didn't read, and then I was doing my 24 and 48 when I listened to a lot of audiobooks to get through that. My rating breakdown is very even across the board. I have a lot of variety in my ratings, as you can see here. It gave an average of 3.44, which you can see, that's the center of the graph, but I did have a 5-star and a 4.5 star and a 1.5, so variety. And without further ado, we get into the books. The first book I read in July was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This was a buddy read Or it was. Well, it was going to be a buddy read with Bailey from Is Bailey Reading and Kayla from Kayla Reads. Kayla's not going to read it, which is fine. She's got a lot going on. Bailey is still reading it. But I finished it like before they even started, kind of. I read it all on my audiobook. It's a 28.6 hour on my audiobook. On my road trip, it's a 28.6 hour audiobook. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. There were some things about the ending that I didn't like, and some of the themes implied by the ending that I didn't like, or I thought, oh, I should move you back center. I mean, move you so that me is back center. There we go. There were some themes implied by the ending that I didn't appreciate or didn't love, and if you want to know what those were, like what those thoughts were, let me know, but they're spoilery. It was just one character's arc I didn't agree with, or I didn't think was done as well as it could have been done. And the way it was done, I didn't agree with it as a choice. But overall, I really liked it. I thought there were some really strong themes, very strong, like, political fantasy vibes rather than, like, action-y fantasy vibes, which is exactly what I want in a fantasy. Like, no one's actually, like, doing magic for the vast majority of the book. Anyway, I mostly really liked it. I like Brandy Sandy a lot. Up next, I read One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This was fine. It was a good vibe for, like, laying at the beach by the pool, crocheting and listening to my little Italian summer audiobook. But, like, it was not very good, actually. So, yeah, I didn't really like it. I gave it 2 stars. It was fine. Like, the vibes were good at certain points, but the plot was really weak. And the ending, like, some of the stuff that happened at the end, I was like, come on. So, like, I listened to a lot of it. Like, I have memories of listening to it sitting by the pool in Jacksonville while Danielle was swimming. And I was just sitting there crocheting and listening. And, like, I liked that vibe. But then I listened to the ending while I was driving, and I literally was like, I have to reenact it for you. Ugh! That's what I was like when I heard some things that happened in the ending. I just thought it was kind of lame. Kind of lame. 2 stars. Then I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, and this, I'm going to see how many days it took me. This took me 38 days. This took me over a month to read because I started it before I left for my trip and I finished it after I had returned from my trip because I did not physical read or like eyeball read at all while I was on vacation. I read like maybe 10 pages of this on the beach in Minneapolis, and otherwise I just didn't eyeball read at all. So I like really enjoyed, I give this 3.5 stars because I really enjoyed the first part of it. And then I kind of lost it, partly because I was, like, away from it for so long. But also I think, like, some of the plot, like, I loved the vibes, but some of the plot things, I just was not really following or caring about as much. So I was just kind of getting through the end, or, like, the last third of it, so that I could return it to the library and not be fined. So it was good, and I believe that I'm going to love this series when the rest of them come out, because I really did enjoy the setup and the beginning and the world and the vibe, and the characters. So really, it's a me problem. Next, oh my gosh, this is my favorite of the month. I read They're Going to Love You by Meg Howry. This was a recommendation from my friend Madeline, who I adore, and is so far spot on for recommendations. This is a book about ballet and AIDS, and it's beautiful. Like, it really, I don't even know, like, describing the plot's not really going to do anything for you. Like, it's a literary, meandery type plot, but the character work was really strong, and just the way, like, I feel like this book saw me, like, in a really profound way. That sounds really dramatic, but, like, I just felt very seen in the ways that it talked about ballet and the main character's complex relationship with ballet, and is similar and different to my own complex relationship to ballet. And I actually went to a ballet class for the first time in a year and a half. More than that, like I literally hadn't been to an in-person ballet class since before the pandemic, after doing it like all growing up and like being a dance major in college and stuff. And then I like went back to a random class this week, and it was really like, it was great. It was a really good experience. But I was kind of inspired by this book to go back to and take a class, because I think like there was a lot about queerness and art and like what it means to be an artist and a dancer, and it just was like, it made me feel a lot of things. That's all I have to say. It made me feel a lot of things. I would recommend it, but I definitely would recommend it for sure. I don't know if it's going to have the same impact on everyone that it had on me, because it was really like personal for me, but I loved it. And I think if you're an artist in any sort of way, and queer in any sort of way, and that intersection that it explores, I think it could do some things for you like it did for me. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Thanks, Madeline. And then I read We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This was a reread. The story of this book, I have vivid memories of reading this book. Senior year of high school. It came out, when did it come out? It came out in 2017. So I read it, I graduated high school in 2018, and I read it in the spring of 2018. I had half days at school, and like I had an internship some of the afternoons, but often I would just like go and get a book from the library and sit outside in the sun and just read a book for my whole afternoon. Because I like was done with school at like noon. And I got this book from the library just like on a whim. I didn't know what it was. I just picked it up, and I was sitting at this specific bench. If you are from my hometown, you know those 3 benches that are like, there's one here and there's 2 here, and there's the pillar that has like the piece, it says like peace in a bunch of languages. That set of benches, I was sitting there. I was sitting on this one. And I got a sunburn on my arm because I sat and I just read that book, the whole thing. And I was sitting there and I got a sunburn, and it made me realize that I was like kind of in love with one of my friends. It was she knows about this now. It was a formative experience for me, reading this book. And so it was cool to reread it. And I mean, I loved it at the time. I thought it was phenomenal. And it's not, I like, the nostalgia factor is really huge. Nina LaCour is a phenomenal writer. I thought the writing was still excellent. I think, there's stuff that's like weaker about it that I didn't realize at the time, but like, I put it in my spreadsheet as a 4-star, but I didn't change my rating in Goodreads from the 5-star from high school. So, you know, it's between there. A 4-star really, but like a 5 nostalgia factor. I just had an experience reading this book in the sunshine like I did however many years ago. And I think it's a great book. I love Nina LaCour. Oh, I need more wine. BRB. Okay. The next book that I read in the month of July was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This was just like a random audiobook that I found on Scribd, but it's really popular right now. I've been seeing it a lot of places, not necessarily on BookTube, but like I feel like it's very prominently displayed in bookstores. It's very much like a middle-aged lady book club book, and I mean that in the best way possible. This is about an octopus and a woman who cleans the aquarium where the octopus lives. I thought it was very sweet. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was very sweet. I thought it was very good, but just in like a regular way, you know, like it was good, but like, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was kind of cheesy, but it was sweet. It was sweet. That's really all I have to say about it. Next, I read Now we're getting into my 24 and 48 reads. These last 5 were during the 24 and 48. I read Nothing More to Tell by Karen M. McManus. This is a young adult mystery. I've read almost all of Karen M. McManus's books. And now I've read all of them except the most recent one, the One of Us is Lying 3rd book. And I generally like her. One of her books did make my worst of the year list last year, I think. But I do generally enjoy her books. They're very fun and easy reads and enjoyable audiobooks. I've listened to them all on audiobook, I think. And I listened to this on audio. I thought this was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars, just in that, like, it was fine. It was good. It was good fine. Good fine. Throwback to last month's Jigsaw TBR. Blah. Last month's Tipsy wrap up where I said everything was fine. This is good fine. It was good fine. Do I remember anything about it? Absolutely not. But I enjoyed it. Next, I read The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I finished this during my 24 and 48. But most of this I read on the beach in Cape Cod when I was on vacation. Not the vacation I previously discussed, my road trip, but a different vacation. It's summer, you know. I read this on the beach, and it's a very good book to read on the beach. It is so weird. I ended up giving it 2 stars, but not in a bad way. Like, I didn't like it. But I don't think it's a bad book. It's just really weird and, like, not in my kind of way. It's about a woman who has, like, a sex addiction, basically, or, like, a addiction to love. Like, has weird attachment issues, and she's, like, trying to work through that. There's, like, a breakup of her long-term relationship at the very beginning of the book. And then it's just her, like, trying to recover from that and trying to be in relationships after that, and she meets a fish man. Yeah, it was weird. But not in a bad way, just not in a way that was for me. And then I read The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante, which was also really weird. I gave this one 3 stars. It was a little bit of a better weird for me, but I didn't feel like I got it. Like, I came out of it like, okay, that was a thing I read, and it wasn't bad, but, like, what was it? I don't know. It was weird, and I'm sure that there's something to get, and I just didn't get it. But I think it's about, like, motherhood, and I just didn't connect to it in that way because I'm not a mother. But I liked it, you know, as an experience. I thought it was fine, good fine. It just wasn't, like, great, you know? We're going through these last ones really fast. Then I read The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. I watched the show, The Queen's Gambit, a couple years ago. And I loved it. I loved the show. I thought it was excellent. The book is also excellent. And I would recommend it regardless, like, whether you've watched the show and loved the show, I would recommend it. Or if you did not watch the show, I also would recommend it. I think it was just a really good book. Though, and it's been a long time since I watched the show, so I can't tell you everything that was different. The one thing that was big that was different that I noticed was worse in the book. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I thought it was really good in a lot of ways. But the one change that the show made, like, that was a huge flaw in the book. Basically, the main character, it's about chess. You probably know of Anya Taylor-Joy and the Queen's Gambit because it's, like, iconic. But I'm sure the cover I have on the screen is, like, the movie cover because the original cover is really bad and ugly. I would recommend the show too. If you want to watch the show, good show. The big change that I noticed that the show made was that there's this significant relationship in our main character Beth's life, a childhood friend who comes back in her adult life, and I thought the relationship was much better developed in the show. I think there were some major problems, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there were some major problems and if you want to know, let me know and I'll let you know. let me know and I'll let you know. But there were some major problems in the way the relationship was developed and not developed in the book that I think was remedied in the show. But otherwise, everything else, like all of the chess elements, the addiction elements, I thought were excellent in the book as well as the show. And it felt good to like read it and have like these things happen in the show. It just felt good. It felt good. I liked it. And the last book I read in July, I promised you a 1.5 star, and here it is, was 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. Now this was on my June TBR as a booktube disliked on booktube. That was the prompt. I did find a book that was not liked on booktube, and for a reason. Like, it's just not a good book. It's an And Then There Were None retelling, and I generally like those. I love that concept. But this one was just like, there were a lot of like mildly problematic elements. Like, there were a lot of lines and storylines where I was like, ick. And so all together it was like, ick. And then it just like, what even was the resolution? Who was the murderer? Oh, I remember. It just was not a great resolution. And it just generally was kind of bad. And there's a reason it's disliked on BookTube, because it's kind of bad. So, yeah, kind of bad. 1 star. Those are the books that I read in July. Let me know if you have read or are interested in any of these books below. And I will see you in the next one, I guess. I don't think there's anything else I usually say in these videos. I never remember by the end of these videos when I'm like tipsy. I never remember what I'm supposed to say, but I think that I'm not supposed to say anything for that reason. So, like, comment, subscribe.